we are going to do some practice on identifying and evaluating functions, okay? So we want to see which one of these guys are functions. Let's see here. So when we're looking at a table, which one is a function here? Is this a function? Yes. Why is it a function? This one is a function. Why is that guy a function? Yeah, each x has its own y. The x values do not repeat, right? All right. Let's look at this one right here. Okay, is this guy a function? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this one is a function because my x values do not repeat. Do y'all see that? Now my y value repeats. That's okay. We're just worried about if our x values repeat. All right, let's take a look at this guy over here. 1, 3, 5, 7. Do any of these guys have more than one arrow coming out of it? No, remember this is your x and your y. So this is also a function. Man, these are like all functions, okay? The cost of filling a car's tank depends on the size of the tank. Interesting. Is this a functional relationship? Does the cost depend on the size of the tank? Yeah. My minivan has a bigger gas tank than our CRV. So it costs more money. So this one is true because the cost depends on the size. So yeah, this one is true. That is a function. Okay? Let's look over here. How do you determine if this kind of guy is a function? Vertical line test. Let's see here. Is this a function? Yes, it never touches my vertical line more than once. So this one, it passes the vertical line test. Okay? Okay, let's think. The amount of tuition paid for classes depends on the number of credits being taken. Is that true? You haven't been to college yet, so you're not sure, right? It kind of depends. I would say yes, because like if you do community college or something and you take a certain number of credits, you pay for the hours that you take. Does that make sense? You pay by the class. There are some universities that do it where if you just pay full tuition, whether you take, it's like a window of classes that you have to take to be considered a full-time student. But I would say the amount of tuition paid depends on the number of credits taken. I would say yes, that is true. Okay? Some universities do it a little bit differently. All right, is this guy a function? 1, 3, 1. Uh-oh, what's wrong with this guy? That one's a little cheater, isn't it? And it's with different y's. So this one is no, because the x repeats with different y values. If it repeats with the same y value, is it still a function? Yes. Okay? But because this is with a positive 5 and that's with a negative 5, it's not a function. If they were both positive 5, then it would be a function. Okay? Let's look at this last one. I'm going to make these points a little bit darker. All right? Is this guy a function? No, because it fails what? The vertical line test. It super fails it. It fails it twice. So this one is no, because it fails the vertical line test. Okay? So it fails that vertical line test. So that's just how we quickly can identify and notice if it is a function or not. All right. So now, guys, we're going to look at these next little statements. Rewrite these following statements as coordinate points. So, guys, whenever we are looking at our function notation, remember your f of x is equal to your y, okay? So your f of x is equal to your y. Your input is what, oops, I'm supposed to do that with blue. Your input is right here. Your output is what's on the end, okay? So when we are writing a coordinate points out of something like this, we would write it as x, and then y. Do y'all feel good about that? Okay, so looking at this, what is my x value on part A here? -1. And my y value is +1. So we would write this as -1, +1. Do y'all feel good about that? All right. So the x is always the thing that is inside that little parentheses. That is your input. Your x is your input. Okay? Your y is always the thing at the end. That is your output. All right? So for B, my point would be 1, -1. Okay? Over here we had 2, 7, and -3, -9. Now guys, there might be times where you are asked to evaluate the point based on a graph. So if your x would be equal to 2, you would look at a graph and find what the y was. In this case, it would have been 7. All right, guys? So y'all had a couple problems like that on your homework where we gave you an x and you had to find the y on the graph. All right? You will have some like that on your quiz where you have to find the y. Now, this one's a little bit interesting. Let g of x equal, so we know our x is right here, 2 minus 5x. So my output is that whole thing, that 2 minus 5x. So it's saying, given your input, what is your output? So we're going to evaluate these. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2 minus 5, but not times x. What am I going to multiply it by this time? -1. And so that's 2 times minus 5 times -1. So that's going to be equal to 7. So my g of -1 is equal to 7. Okay, so if I was going to rewrite that, I would say g of -1 is equal to 7. Does that help? You can kind of see it that way? Okay, then we're going to do it again. But this time, instead of -1, what am I going to plug in? -2. Okay, because that's what my x value is. Okay, whatever is in that parentheses, you plug in for your x. Okay, and in this case, it's equal to 12. So g of -2 is equal to 12. Y'all feel good about that? Okay, now one thing that I do want to show you that's nice, y'all can go ahead and do the C and the D, is guys, this is when the calculator comes in handy when you have to do a lot of them at once. Because you can say, okay, 2 minus 5, and instead of your x, you just plug in your little -1 there. And it pops out your 7. And then if you hit second enter, it pulls up what you just typed in. So then all you have to do is go and change the number. So now it's -2, okay? Then if we want to do it again, it would be, instead of -2, what should I plug in now? 0. My answer is going to be 2. If I plug in not 0, what am I going to plug in now? 5. So every time I'm just changing my x value, and it gives me, using the calculator is really nice when you have to do multiple ones of these. Okay, you just got to make sure you type in that equation correctly. Okay, so if we go ahead and do this guy right here, we'd say, okay, 2 minus 5 times 0. And 2 minus 5 times 5. Okay? And we know that we pick 0 because it's the 0 in there. We pick the 5 because the 5 is our input. And that was equal to 2, and that was equal to -23. Do y'all feel good about that? So if we rewrote this, we would say, okay, well, g of 0 is equal to 2. And g of 5 is equal to -23. All right, y'all? Now, we have 2 more problems down here, and then I would like to go over these with you guys, and so that we can kind of work through them, all right? So we can kind of understand the thought process here. So the profit from selling T number of T-shirts is described by this function. P of T equals 8 times T minus 500. Find P of 70 and describe what that value represents. So if we want to do P of 70, we are going to plug in 70 every time there's a T. So instead of T, I'm going to plug in 70. Do y'all feel good about that? So P of 70 is equal to what? Let's see here. What's 8 times 70? It's what, 560 minus 500? So that's only $60. Yikes. Okay? So this tells me that P of 70 is only equal to 60. So guys, what does this 70 represent again? That's a T. So what does that T represent? That's the number of T-shirts. Okay, so at 70 T-shirts, what is the profit? $60. Does that feel like a very good profit? No, even the bracelet girl was making more than that, okay? And she only sold 20 bracelets. She still made $60, okay? So, do you think they need to sell their T-shirts for like a little more money? Yes, I would say so, okay? So what we are going to say is, I guess after selling 70 T-shirts, they made what? $60 profit? Yikes. That does not feel like a lot of money for a lot of work, okay? So after selling 70 T-shirts, they only made a $60 profit. So that's what this means in context. Do you guys feel good about that? Does that make sense? All right. Then we'll look here. Let's look at the second one. The number of Facebook friends you make D days after arriving on campus. So D is our days. That's probably going to be our, that's our X value. After arriving at campus is described by this function. F of D equals 2D. Find F of 7 and describe what that value means. So I'm going to say, okay, well, F of 7 is equal to 2 times what? 7. So F of 7 is equal to what, y'all? 14. So this tells me, what does my 7 represent again? The D. So that's my days. What does the 14 represent? The number of Facebook friends. So he might, I hope he has more than 14 friends. But yeah, so that's your Facebook friends. So if we were going to write a sentence, how would we write that?
After 7 days on campus, you will have 14.
Yeah. After 7 days on campus, you or he or she will have 14 Facebook friends, right? And you're like, no, I won't, because I don't use Facebook. How many of y'all actually have a Facebook? Yeah? It's like, I feel like it's dying. So when I went to college, man, it was like only college students were on Facebook. It was so cool. Not anymore. Not when they let the grandmas in. Okay. So, I mean, it's great to keep up with people, but that's okay. So, all right. So after 7 days on campus, you will have 14 Facebook friends. So that is a great way to say that. All right. So does this help y'all see this a little bit? All right. So what we're going to do now is we are going to get ready to take our quiz. If you guys have